Okay.
Nervous.
Right, let's go. Hi everyone, I'm Hollie Power from Salonology, and I'm here with Simone Thomas, founder of Simone Thomas Wellness. And we're laughing because we're very excited about this, aren't we?
With besties, and then you're going to grill me.
I am going to grill her. I'm going to absolutely grill her because basically, right, here's the deal. Simone and I met 5 years ago now.
Maybe just a little bit over, the air show when I was pregnant with Ashton.
Yeah, just over 5 years, and we were up against each other for an award. And neither of us won the award. It was Entrepreneur of the Year, wasn't it? We were
up for one this year. Well, so are you.
We are.
For different
You're
awards.
coming round for dinner for the announcements. And we were both up against each other for this award alongside another girl. Neither of us won, but we walked away with each other. Yeah. So we both figure we got the best prizes
and
of all.
matching shoes on the
matching
night.
shoes, matching Jimmy shoes.
Jimmy shoes.
And we formed this friendship, and I've seen Simone go through so much over the last few years with her businesses and her brands. And I've also seen the launch of her incredible Simone Thomas Wellness brand, which is insanely amazing. And the reason I wanted to do this chat with us today and have us talking to one another is because so many people see Simone on camera, and they see her on screen, they see her on Facebook, they see her on YouTube, and they see this incredibly beautiful woman who's super successful. And I wanted to show off the Simone that I see.
The worst side.
No, the even more beautiful side, because Simone is even more beautiful on the inside than she is on the outside. And the drive to create this incredible brand that she's created comes from such an interesting story and such an interesting background, which is what makes it such a powerful brand and such a powerful product. And I just want to share that with people because people don't see that side of Simone, and I'm lucky that I've been to see it. And I think when you find beauty in the world, you should share it. So today I'm going to be grilling her. She has no idea what I'm going to ask her. I'm going to put her on the spot so you get an opportunity to meet the real Simone.
Good luck.
Let's get started. Right, I'm going to get my questions out.
It's different doing this. I'm normally quite hidden away behind the podcast.
Yep.
So people can't see your emotions.
No, this is you out and out and out. Okay, so we're going to ask some random questions in random order. We're just going to see what comes to mind for Simone, so you can actually see what kind of person she is. So the first question I'm going to ask her. You're a mama to two very handsome, very spirited little boys. Mm. What is the one most important lesson that you think is so vital for them to grow up knowing? What do you want them to take away as children from growing up with you as their mum?
Cool. It's a hard one. I think because my childhood wasn't great, and I don't remember much of it. That's quite always a sad point, because there's obviously reasons why you don't remember things, like the body's able to mask things over, and it's not something that I ever want to remember, so I'm quite happy not remembering. So for me, I suppose it's giving them great memories, but like I think for them, it doesn't matter where you come from, whether you come from money or you don't come from money. That doesn't make you as a child. It's what you're taught from your parents.
Absolutely.
And mainly Ashton, because he's the older one, that he can understand a lot more than William. If he's done something wrong, let's say he's bitten his brother or he's had a fight, and he would lie to me, he's now understanding that he's better off telling me the truth, because I won't then tell him off. So recently, an example, I thought William had been to my bedroom and had put foundation all over my French chair that's cream. So I told William off because William had been home that day, and it turns out it was Ashton that he'd got him from school, ran upstairs and did it in a fit. So I told William off, and William was adamant that it wasn't him, and I was like, yeah, but William, you're the liar, I'm doing it to you. And then Ashton had a bath, and then he came down and was like, Mummy, it was me. And I think he was expecting me to obviously go off the rails, and then I just sat down and said, listen, that I always say, don't lie and don't steal, the same as I say to staff, and the fact that you've told me the truth, I'm not angry with you, I'm actually proud of you. So I think kind of not lying, but also just the love and the fun. You know me, outside of kind of work, that I'm quite a fun person.
She's
but I'm
a lot
very,
of
very
fun.
sensitive as well.
Yes.
Ashton's very sensitive, and even to like the point, like if I go to hug them, I don't just go and do it. I ask them if they want a hug. So it's kind of teaching them kind of boundaries and not just assuming that it's okay to just go up to someone and hug them. That it's kind of like everybody's got different feelings and emotions, and just because you might want a hug doesn't mean that he does.
Yeah.
So it's kind of teaching them kind of those things.
Respect and honesty.
Not lying. He, like Ashton again, like he'll clean in the morning at the weekend for pocket money, or if he wants a game on his Nintendo, he's always like, oh mummy, I'll help you, you do so much for us, that he'll get the Hoover out, or he'll try and cook dinner, like he'll just say, oh, I'll come help cook dinner. So he'll go and get like William's like potty stall and then want to cook with me, but I think that comes down from just being very caring as a mum and kind of always involving them. And I think you remember, like when I first had Ashton, I remember going to a meeting and I had red trainers on, and I was like, well, I can cope going to work with trainers. Like the heels have to now go under the bed. And he came with me in the car seat, from 3 days old. And he's never been a baby. He's quite mature for his years because I've always involved him as I have like William. And I never had that as a child that I remember. So I think it's just, involving them and just kind of being there. But it's always hard, isn't it, to kind of know if you're parenting the right way, and I do tell them off, I do discipline them. I got brought up with discipline at private school. Don't give them the cane or the belt or anything like that. But
that's illegal now.
Yeah, it's all boundaries,
Yeah.
and if he is kicking off, it's like, you go to your room, you think about it until you're ready to come down and say sorry. And Ashton will, where William's like me, he's stubborn. So in an argument, especially in a relationship, I am a nightmare for backing down. I'm very, as you know, I can just switch off my emotions like that. I can, like if someone hurts me, even though it hurts, I'm like, right, done, in a box, never going to think about that person, but it will hurt inside.
Yeah.
And I can be like that. So William's got that kind of stubborn approach that I have, that you literally have to bribe him with a biscuit to get him to say sorry, and then even then he won't look at you, he'll just be like sorry, and that's like me. So they are very similar.
They're a mix of you and their dad, aren't they, really?
And
definitely. They're fabulous little boys with awesome energy.
Even Ashton,
absolutely,
I think you saw the
awesome
picture
energy
the other day at school in his little shirt, and my Uncle Rob had come round, he's like, Uncle Rob, I'm off to reception, and he's like thinking he's big, and then there's a picture of him in the classroom and he's just stood just like his dad does at a party.
I saw the picture, and what did I say?
He looks just like his dad.
Yeah.
But no, I'm lucky that they are, they're two great boys. Yes, they play up like all children do. But yeah, I definitely say we've got a lot of love in the house, and they love music. Ashley loves being naked like me, so I'm not going to lie, I'm definitely a naked person, so you're lucky today, guys, I've got clothes on. But
or not so lucky, depends on how you look at it.
He's like me, he loves music, very, very similar, and I would say he's kind of like an old soul, which, through my uncle and what he's told me as a kid, I was quite an old soul, with like a briefcase, and I would write things and lock them away and not want to communicate or talk to many people. So we've got quite similar kind of traits and stuff as well.
And what do you think, from how you were brought up and the journey that you've been on, how do you feel that's inspired your journey to become a businesswoman?
Oh God, so a lot. I lost my father when I was about 6 or 7. Him and my mum, my father Michael, they weren't together, they were actually divorced, and my father had met another lady, and I've got 2 incredible half-sisters. He died at a very, very young age. He worked in Saudi on the oil rigs. He came from Wales, Blackwood, Gwent, so a very, very old mining kind of town, very, very poor, area, still can be. But he went and became very, very successful, but he died at like 33, which back then in like 88, you didn't really have wills. Well, you did, but it tends to be kind of the more wealthy that would kind of get those things in order, but also at age 32, 33, you don't think you're going to die. No. So unfortunately he died in a car accident out there, and our life turned upside down, because obviously he had remarried, you know, naturally, in law, everything would go to, you know, his new family. And there was things that had gone on between, you know, my family and his new family and court and whatnot. And I just remember the strain that my mum was under. And she used to work at Old Salisbury Hospital, I think on like the HIV ward. She helped as a chiropodist. She did night shorthand. And weirdly, I think where LV is in Bournemouth, I think years ago that was Lloyd's, like 30, 40 years ago,
right.
because that's where her and my father met. Actually, it's weird that they met down here. And I just remember our life changing overnight. My mum was with a new guy when this all happened, but he wasn't a very nice person. And in the end, we went both off to private school because it was the only way that my mum was able to really just keep an eye on everything, you know, and look after herself. And I just remember from that young age that I'd just been told my father had passed away. And then 4 months later, I was sent to Morven in Worcestershire, which is like 7 hours away. And back then in the 80s, like the winters were winters, like, you know, full of snow, very, very strict school. You know, your parents weren't allowed to come and see you weekly. I was a full-time boarder at a really young age. Very music, kind of academic, religious school, so it was church every Sunday. So it was completely different to anything that I'd ever known. My mum had remarried, who was my stepfather. Again, just really not a very nice guy, and I was very fortunate that I was away from what he was putting my mum through. And I just remember, like, if I look back at what my mum is like or was like, she always reminds me of Baby out of Dirty Dancing. So, you know, where she's on the log with the jeans. Yeah. To me, that was how my mum looked. I mean, my mum was slightly bigger and curvier and more voluptuous, but that is how I remember my mum kind of always being fun. And she would walk in a room and you would just naturally turn around. And she wasn't a makeup person. She just had this thing about her that you knew that she was there. Yeah. I think her friends always used to call her Amelia Marcus, is it? Like the famous shoe person, because she was just obsessed with shoes like me from Ruston and Bromley. And I just remember at a young age thinking, God, I need to always be in control of my life. So financially, you know, in control. I need to play out scenarios to protect myself because I have a real fear of loss, and I still do now. And I play out things in my head, even with the boys and, you know, and their father of, well, what if this happens? How am I going to cope? So I think definitely from not having a father, and then what you would hope a stepfather to be, he wasn't. And then my mum obviously got very ill with motor neurons disease, and that dragged on for a long period of time. I then found that I was going out from a younger age with older men, not like old, don't worry.
Sugar daddies.
But like from like age 18, they were probably in their late 20s. But I rebelled because I'd gone to an all-girls private school, was allowed to mix with boys at A-levels, but then naturally you rebel, you go against what my mum was saying. I was meant to go into the Navy, I didn't go. And I kind of mucked around for quite a few years really, till in my late 20s, but I definitely remember such a disjointed childhood and imbalance, and my mum struggling, that I was like, right, I need to be in control of my life. Especially more so now with the two boys, it's, you know, it's even harder because I want them to have a good education, but that costs money. And it's like, right, you've got to do these. And I know people will say, well, you don't need to do that, but I just, from what I went through, I just think if I can give them a good grounding with education and upbringing, whatever happens to me, hopefully they'll have that in them to then go on to do, you know, something incredible if they want to do that.
Amazing. You and I have spoken about your dad before, and we've talked about what an incredible guy he was.
Yeah, he's my brother's double, for sure.
And I know her brother, because he lives just down the road from me, and he's a fab guy. You take after him,
I think,
in quite a few ways, don't you? Particularly in your generosity.
Yeah, so he would always buy randomly, like if someone needed a washing machine in Wales, which is a really weird thing to buy, but back then in the 80s, they were a luxury item. And that's one thing that his family have always said, that they always remember my father being really generous, and would always go the extra mile for people. If it meant that he went without, that he'd always care more about them than kind of him. So I definitely think I've got that.
Like
and my mum was like that as well.
Yeah.
You know, she was very, you know, giving and stuff as well. But I would definitely say, you know, myself and my brother have definitely got that kind of nature from him.
The path that I see from knowing about what you've told me about your dad and knowing your business acumen and your salon, and now you've gone on to the wellness brand as well, is that what you inherited from your dad there, and that generosity that you have within you, and that desire to help other people in need, that I feel has fueled your business journey. Like, you're going through, I mean, you didn't just open a salon, you opened a salon and then you trained as a trichologist. If I said that right? Trichologist? I'm never sure which way you pronounce it. Which is a specialist in hair loss. And that's been driven by a desire to help people that have experienced hair loss. That's where the wellness brand has come, to help people, hasn't it? Yeah. And I think when you consume something, whether that's a product you put on your skin, whether it's food, whether it's supplements, you've got to consume it with intention. It has a goal of something it's got to do. Yeah. And the passion that went into the brand was about, I'm going to infuse my desire to help people into this product and put it out there. It wasn't, let's cash in on people who have hair difficulties and worries. It was, let's create something that can genuinely help them. Do you agree with that?
Definitely. And it's one, I think, from what I'd gone through my own experience with hair loss. My mum's hair deteriorated, obviously, with motor neurones disease. And like any woman, you know, and even guy, 99% of us, our hair is what sets us up for the day. Definitely. And it doesn't matter, you know, what shoes, what jewellery, what handbag, what car, what house you have, or how much money's in the bank. If your hair's not feeling like it should do, you just feel like crap. Like, you just don't want to go out. Some people don't want to date. They don't want to go out for, you know, a dinner date with their husband or their wife. And it really eats away. And I suffered with that years ago, that I wouldn't go to parties, or if I didn't know anybody, I'd be like, oh my God, they'd be looking at my hair, and then they're not going to like me, and all of these things. And then it kind of gets in a really bad kind of, you know, rote or rut or stuff, that it just then becomes the norm, that you don't go out and you don't do things, or people expect you to kind of be a certain way. Yeah. And I think with, you know, the people that I see or have seen over the years in the salon originally, because when I originally started, you know, kind of Simone Thomas salon 9 years ago, I never knew it was going to take the journey that it's now taken. So it was kind of an idea I had of, you know, I want to help people, and it was mainly at the time about women, helping them with their confidence, that maybe they've gone through something, whether it's a, you know, trauma, and it's like, okay, well, let's help you with your makeup, let's help you with your styling, let's help you with your hair, let's re-give you confidence. Or if you're going for an interview but you just don't know what to wear. Yeah. And that's where it kind of started from. And then I started getting inquiries about wigs, and then kind of the NHS got in contact, and then within 2 years, all of a sudden, I became quite a well-known key figure in the area for helping women and men with hair loss issues, skin complaints, and then kind of then went on to do bioenergetics and nutrition, because I was seeing a pattern that it's not just about taking a product, it's that whole concept of you've got to work on everything. Yeah. And that's where it kind of came from. And luckily, with the, you know, the thousands and thousands of people that we've treated, there was very similar consistent patterns that I was able to say, okay, well, this is what tends to be going on in people's lives day to day. How can you support the body with what they're going through, because they're not looking after themselves? And then that's how, you know, before kind of Simone Thomas Wellness launched a couple of years ago, sort of 3-4 years prior, I was mixing formulations, trialing things at home, which weirdly is how I ended up pregnant. So obviously having endometriosis, you know, in all my years of being in relationships, which has been a few, not going to lie, I've never fallen pregnant, you know, and then found out I had endometriosis. And weirdly, because I was creating like a better environment in the body, better absorption, my food was, you know, really good, water, exercise, super greens, I then fell pregnant. And unfortunately, you know, that didn't actually, you know, turn, because I actually had a miscarriage. But then again, when I started to get back into my health and whatever, Ashton was then born. And it just shows you like the power of everything that you're putting in, and how you kind of look after your body, and kind of like the pillars of wellness and whatever, that it all kind of came from there, that I was seeing such similar patterns in my own body and in clients, that I was like, there must be something more than a shampoo or a conditioner, which is a band-aid. It's not going to fix the issue, it's just a masking solution. And you've always got to work from within, and that's where it kind of always came from.
Because you've got a huge almost obsession with gut health, haven't you?
I do, yes. The mothership.
You're like, and I know that a lot of scientists work on this concept, don't they? That everything starts in the gut, and that's been so much of what's fueled the brand for you, hasn't it? And you know, talking about the hair loss and everything, and damage and stuff to hair. I've been through it with my own hair journey, and I went to Simone's salon, and I had hair extensions put in because I knew they would be safe and they'd be done well to allow my hair to recover and grow out. And we've gone through a whole process, and of course I take her supplements, and it's totally changed my hair again, hasn't it? It's gone from thin, and for how I always felt was when my hair was thin, it made me look older. It aged me, and it made me feel really uncomfortable. And I look back at pictures and I think, oh my God, and I put my hair in a ponytail and it would be just a little wisp. And that was really hard because I used to have really thick, long dark hair.
I remember having a conversation with you, well, mainly like before lockdown and before Christmas, because I remember it was your birthday last year and your mum even reached out to me and said, what should I get for Hollie? And I knew your hair was kind of an issue, and I said, just get her a Dyson hairdryer, because she still wants to do her hair, but you want it to be like the right piece of equipment and you know, in the right heat, that it's going to protect the hair, which they're not cheap. But obviously the difference with your hair anyway now compared to then is amazing. You've come out of lockdown like with this massive mane of hair.
Like a lion. Okay. We've got a bit deep. So now we're going to get a bit fun, right? We might get a bit deeper again. Right. If you had to be tied to somebody for 72 hours, who would it be?
You're going to laugh at this, but Al Pacino.
Oh. Okay, because you actually want to be tied to Al Pacino, or just because you think he'd be really interesting?
Two things. One, because I think he'll be really interesting, but he did a movie years ago where he was the devil. Oh God, does it have Nicole Kidman in it? I can't. Oh, it's quite raucous. And there's just something quite, if I can say, a bit dirty about him, if that's the right thing to say. There's just something about him that I just think he would be just really interesting person. Not because of like the movies, but I think he'll have quite a raucous kind of personality and quite raw and stuff that he would be, who I'd love to spend. I'd probably spend 72 weeks with him, not 72 hours.
I do kind of get it, because I'm feeling a bit of Robert De Niro.
Okay,
You know, the Italian American gangster kind of thing. Yeah, I can see where that's coming from.
And I think like you can say like, I don't know, like Jason Statham or whatever, but to me, like their movies, if I'm looking at their movies, have always been quite similar. Where with him, there's just something about him. There's just
It's not what I thought she would say.
But weirdly,
I was hoping she'd say me personally.
I was at a meeting last week, and I tell you who walked past me, and I literally was like, wow, was James Bond, and it was not the Scottish one.
Daniel Craig?
No, the other one.
Roger Moore?
No, I've forgotten his bloody name now. Pierce Brosnan. And I will say, an impeccable looking man. I mean, literally, his beard, his clothes, for an older guy, was just absolutely like, wow. Yeah. And the voice, it was the voice I heard first, because he was in like a private dining room. The door opened, and I thought, oh God, that voice. And I looked up and I was like, I really want to ask you for a selfie, but I don't want to make a dick of myself. So I just sat there and knew that he'd gone to the toilet, because I knew which way he'd gone, and I was like, I'm going to walk past in a minute, because the guys that he was with were like beside me but outside, but then they were having pictures taken, and I found out he was staying there for 5-6 weeks because he was doing a lot of filming down the south. So he was staying at this hotel I was at, and to see him out of all the people I've ever kind of thing, he was like, wow. So you'd possibly be tied to him? Maybe both, so I'm going to be greedy.
Both of them. One on each
Maybe
hand.
one for midweek and then the other one for the weekend. So that could work.
Excellent. Sounds good. So, if you had no social media for 7 days, what would you do to fill your day?
Probably read more. So was a big reader. Mainly up to last year, where I'd probably get 4 or 5 books a month off Amazon. But now I don't. I go to bed, there's typically messages I've got to catch up on, or people have taken the quiz, let's say on Simone Thomas Wellness, about what hair plan or skin plan. And we now live in a world that people want answers 24/7, 24/7 hours. And it's just, you just can't get away from it. And you don't want to go to bed and there'd be something weird that's been posted or tagged, and it to be live for 10 hours without having control. But I would definitely read a lot more. I've made a lot more time for myself recently that I've now booked Pilates in every morning at 8:50 for 45 minutes, at least 4 or 5 times a week, within the week, because typically if I leave exercise to the afternoon, it never happens because calls come in or whatever. But social media is a killer. It's a hard one. It's something you need as a brand and as a business, but you can't get away from it, and it's hard sometimes.
Talking about mamas and children, what's your favourite thing about being a mummy?
Oh, God. I don't know. Sometimes you wish the time away, in the sense you think, I just wish you were a little bit older, so then we don't have these arguments or episodes. But I think just even like Ashton started school this week, and the difference I've seen with him, like he's turning into, it's a bit like Pinocchio, like he's a real boy now. But it's just incredible, and he's nearly 5, and, it's not been easy 5 years, but it's been a very quick 5 years. And I just think, like, they know when you're not right, like they know if you're having a bad day or if you need a hug, and it's those little things that they do of, mummy, like Ashton will say to me, mummy, don't hug me, let me hug you, see how strong I am. So I have to stand there, and he's but he loves it. Or he'll give me big wet kisses, and I'm like, oh my God, you got like slimy breath. But for him, it's his thing, and that's what I love. It's those kind of moments and stuff as well, that you see them change. And sometimes I put them to bed and I wake up and they look like they're someone different, like they've changed overnight, and that's what's incredible. So I take a hell of a lot of pictures. Like I picture everything because I want to, for Ashton, for every 5 years I'm going to create them a photo book, and when they're 30 I'm going to give them those photo albums, because all pictures are on mobile phones. We don't print them like years ago, where you go to your grandparents and you sit down. And I think if I don't do it, they're not going to have any pictures from their childhood, which is something I never had. I don't have any pictures at all. I think I've got 1 picture or 2 of my mum, and maybe 1 or 2 of my dad that were sent to me. So for me, like, I love just taking pictures and just comparing, and then your iPhones are so clever that they say this happened 2 years ago. And then you're able to,
you can become
kind of see the difference
on that, can't you, to remind you of your memories. What about your least favourite thing about being a mum?
That's my phone, guys. I'm in trouble. Let me turn that off. I thought I bloody put it off. That's fine. God, least favourite thing. I suppose you don't realise how selfish we are as human beings till children come along. So I could easily work today and then say to staff or to you, right, let's go for a glass of wine or let's go out for dinner. You can't do that. And I think it's where... And it's probably not the least worst, that's probably the wrong thing to kind of say, but
it changes your life, doesn't it?
It's kind of not boring, because it's not boring, but Monday to Fridays, school run in the morning, you then work, you've got to make sure that whatever's going on in your day, you finish by 4:30 to then do a pick up at 5, and then you've got that battle for 3 hours where they're kind of tired, dinner, I don't want dinner, they're fighting, then trying to get them to bed, and that can sometimes go until 9:30, and you just think, Jesus Christ, I got to have a bath tonight, I just wanted some time out. But I know that gets easier as they get older, but I enjoy it. But some days you just think, good God, I could just do with a bit of a break and whatever. And because I haven't got parents, they haven't got grandparents, so it's not like I've got help and support where some families, they'll go to them for an evening or even just having dinner, that you get that kind of break that if I wanted to say to you or whatever, like, oh, let's just go and grab a pizza tonight for an hour, like they're not going to be back till 7, you can do it. So I never really thought of it that way, even though I've got loads of godchildren. I suppose I was always the one who would take them shopping and then hand them back. I was always the cool one. But you don't realise actually how hard it actually is. And, for women or men at home that are full-time parents, it is hard. I couldn't do that because I find it not depressing. Again, it's kind of probably not the right word, but I need to be out learning, I need to be motivated and stimulated, that I just couldn't do a school drop, go for coffee with a mum and then not have a purpose. Like, I want to look back on my life and say, you know what, I bloody did that. That was your mum that did that.
And you're
but
teaching
for others,
your
they love
sons
doing that. Yeah, exactly.
strong women. And you know that they're out there and they're going to change the world.
Yeah.
All right, let's finish on some fun questions. Cheesiest compliment you've ever received?
Oh, God.
I bet there's a few.
Compliment. Oh, bloody hell. I'm really bad at actually taking compliments, so I tend to shrug them off. But I got asked out on a date when I was pregnant on a train. That was quite good.
You told me about
that was
this.
quite interesting.
Yeah.
I was like 7 months pregnant and the guy didn't realise. And he was actually quite a rather attractive guy, actually. And he asked me out for a date. And I remember stood up and was like, well, I don't think so. But compliments, I don't know. I suppose in my younger years when I was all hair and makeup, I looked a little bit like Kylie Minogue, which I would always take. I was like quite happy with that on some photo shoots.
Yeah. Just a much taller version.
Yeah, much taller version.
She's only about 4'9" or something, isn't she?
Or I suppose like my height. Like, I love being tall, and I don't think people realise how tall I am.
You are tall.
And I've always loved that. It's always been like my little power of like walking
I
into
feel
a bar.
tall until I'm next to you, and then I feel short.
And I always use it. Like, I can walk in a bar and I can just wheeze my through, and then most guys are shorter.
Yeah,
and that's
like
something I like.
It's like the parting of the seas. So, right, imagine you walking into that bar, right now, and this is the story of your life. You're walking into the bar, and what song is playing as you walk in? Like, what is the theme tune to Simone's life?
Freaking hell. Oh.
I'm everywhere.
Yeah. Bloody hell. I really don't know. It's like when someone asks you what your favourite song is. I really don't know.
Or when someone asks you what your favourite quote is, like she did on a
Yeah,
podcast with me, it's
did.
revenge time.
God. I really couldn't give you an answer on that. I wouldn't know, because I think, like, I still see me as two people.
Okay.
And this is where, like, in the past, one of my podcasts, I had Becky Holston, who's kind of a counsellor, life coach.
Yeah.
And it's still always a sticky block or a sticky road with me of who is Simone Thomas, not who is Simone Thomas business.
Yes.
And that's something that I'm still learning, because, again, we always talk about childhood when we're kind of talking about what makes you as an adult. And because I don't remember a lot of it, I'm very always torn of Simone Thomas me, Simone Thomas business, and it's trying to find that identity.
Yeah.
And I think lockdown has made me realise more, and that I'm now deciding to do more things for myself instead of looking after everybody.
Yeah.
So I find it really hard to kind of think, well, that's me, that's that track. You would probably be able to answer that better than me.
Probably could.
I find it hard to kind of,
Well, this next question is very relevant then. Who would play you in a movie?
Oh, I would love Nicole Kidman to play me.
Well, funnily enough, our little wolf pack, which is me, Simone, and another friend, we always say we're the three girls from Big Little Lies.
Yeah,
Nicole Kidman.
Yeah, because I did have red hair not long ago.
And Erica is, can't remember the actress's name.
Yes.
Shania or someone.
Yeah.
Very, very talented actress. And we actually look reasonably like the three of them as well. I was blonder then. Very, very last question. If you could do one thing that would change the world, what would it be?
Cool. There's so much that needs to be changed. I think probably because my brother's wife has been on the receiving end of his two children having afros, and I don't think it's ever going to happen.
Such gorgeous,
because
lovely girls.
It comes from your childhood and what you're taught at home. So in one way, it's those adults that have got that stupid mindset that should be removed. But kind of racism, but not just racism as such. It's more stop the press saying this white person's qualified and got a diploma as a doctor, or this black person. To me, I've never seen that, as you have never seen. You just say, well, that guy's an incredible guy, or that woman's that.
Yeah.
I feel at the moment, even on LinkedIn, that everyone is always having a label against the skin colour, which I think sometimes making it worse. But then I get why people are doing that, to obviously make a point.
Yeah.
But I think I think it's getting a lot worse than it's getting better, because I think I read something yesterday. Britain's Got Talent. Is it Diversity? The
dance
Angie
troupe.
Banjo, or whatever his name
Ashley
is.
Banjo,
Ashley Banjo.
Yeah.
They did, from what I've seen on the clip on the news, the most amazing dance routine, and it was all about Black Lives Matters, and but they've had like just under 3,000 complaints to Ofcom, which to me shows
For what
me
purpose?
because they shouldn't have had it, basically saying it's not correct to have such a political dance routine, but it's what's going on in the world, it's real.
Right.
And those 3,000 complaints are those typical people that are probably going to be against gays, like, not being funny, like people like that, and some people aren't going to like it, but they're the ones that are probably homophobic or against same-sex marriages or relationships, because they've either been brought up that way, or they're very small-minded and not educated about it.
Dating back to the whole concept that women shouldn't be in business, or women should be at home, just homekeepers, and really what it comes down to is everybody has the right to live in a way that makes them happy, on the condition that they're not hurting anybody else.
No, exactly. As long as you're not hurting anybody, definitely.
It's nuts that anybody has the time or energy to see it anyway, other than that, because we all have so much going on in our lives to protect and ensure and grow as humans and as people, to take our time up with that sort of rubbish. It's just really a waste of our lives. It's a waste of the energy and the gift that we have being alive every day. So it's absolutely crazy. Well,
and
that brings us...
You say that, because I think, like, people that have got an issue with skin colour, I guarantee if they were in a severe car accident and the ambulance drivers or the fire brigade turned up, and let's say they weren't of the same skin, they're not going to say to them, no, please let me die. And that's what they've got to remember. Like, you were just being funny for whatever mental block is in your head, where if you actually needed help or support, you're not going to turn away that ambulance crew or that emergency service to say, sorry, you're not coming anywhere near me. And I think that's where people just need a serious wake-up call.
There are some people in the world that would do that.
Oh, yeah, there probably are.
Extremists.
Oh, God, yeah, definitely.
And I read a very interesting book by J.D. Picoult about it, it's not a true story, but it's about a woman who has difficulties during birth, and the midwife was African American, and it was the story about them refusing her help. They were white supremacists, and the story of what happened, and it's very, very interesting to think that goes on.
Oh God,
it's crazy. Anyway, thank you so much for sharing Inner Simone. Now you can see the Simone that I know more. This raw, real, beautiful, genuinely kind...
Into older men,
ex-party girl woman who has changed my life massively from being within it, and has now created something that can change so many lives as well. And I'm so honoured to be able to share, although I don't really want to share her because she's mine.
I don't share myself often.
She doesn't, so you should be very honoured to see the real Simone as well, because this is the Simone that I see. This real, beautiful, lovely, kind woman sitting here. So thank you for your time, and I love you very much.
Love you too. Thank you, guys.